If I were to ask you to say a sentence, to write a sentence, I'm pretty sure you could handle it. Any sentence at all, it doesn't really matter. It could be, I love lamp. I have cats. Could be anything like that, right? But here's the thing that's really interesting. If I were to ask you to explain how to create a sentence, you might have a little bit more difficulty doing it because grammar isn't something we often think about. We just kind of make sentences, is that right? And then we then go to school to learn grammar about how to improve our sentence structure. But the thing is, there are rules, there are guidelines, there are things set in place to help us make good sentences, right? Well, what about maps? Maps are interesting too because maps help us get from point A to point B. Yes, you might be able to get from point A to point B easily, or maybe not so easily. But we do know that having a map can maybe make a trip go faster, right? So we've got these things like grammar, and we've got these things like maps. We've got these things that help guide us when we're in the middle of a project. Well, have you ever thought about the Eucharist, communion, being like grammar or being a map for us? Oh, well, what's going on there? There's a grammar to life. Is there a map to life? Now, I'll be honest, sometimes it's kind of difficult talking to you 6th to 12th graders because you're so brilliant, but you have so many different ways of which you take in new information. The way that you do it as a 6th grader is very different than how you might as a 12th grader. And I even know that there are some grandparents out there watching this video too. So let's dive into this just a little bit. Is there a grammar to life? Is there a map? Is there something of which we can have that helps us navigate our whole lives long? Well, I'm going to draw pretty heavily right now from Henry Nouwen, who is a Catholic priest, a very prolific writer. He wrote so much, but get this, I believe he had 2 PhDs. I think he had one in theology and the other one was in clinical psychology. And so when he talks about things in his writings, it's both theologically grounded and very much about the struggles and the normal things of which it means to just be human. But when he talks about the Eucharist, he does this. He says, listen, on the last night that Jesus was with his disciples, he took the bread, and he blessed it, and he broke it, and he gave it to the disciples, and then they had what we call now the Last Supper, right? And we now do communion and Eucharist, almost as though it's a looking backwards to that time. Jesus says to do this in remembrance of him. But when we do communion or Eucharist, it's also a look forward. Not just backwards in time to Jesus then, but also forward in time to the wedding banquet, the big meal that we'll have with God at the end of all things. But those 4 words can help us a lot. They've helped me in reality. Because all life long, we need to realize that we are, 1, taken or chosen by God. Let's say there's a basket of bread and somebody picks up one piece of bread, but not the other piece of bread. Well, we are taken. We are chosen and maybe pulled out. And then that's the beautiful next part, too. We are then blessed by God in our life and by our life. Everything of which we ever experience, everything is grace. Sunrise, sunsets, moonrise, moonset, really good bowls of cereal, ice cream with brownies in it, Twizzlers. I really like the peach O's that they have at Wawa, right? Oh, on a bad day I get those. But we are blessed so often. And we are actually 7 times more likely to focus on the negative. But maybe that's why God actually litters our lives with blessedness. But here comes the next part, number 3. We get broken by God, by others, by ourselves. There's something going on in the grammar of life that, I'm sorry to say it to you 6th, 12th, older adults, y'all know what I mean. At some point in our lives, something's going to come along and break us. And again, it could be something that we do or other people do, or maybe we feel like it was done by God, but no one gets out of this life without being broken. I'm sorry to say it, but you know what? There's good news, because I'm at least telling you ahead of time. And some of your parents, some of your grandparents, they've already experienced certain levels of being broken. But again, here's the good news. That's not the last thing. First is to be taken, second is to be blessed, third is to be broken, fourth is to be given and distributed and shared. You see, every single one of us, from 6th graders to 12th graders to parents to grandparents to anyone else in the face of the entire world, each of us have a unique gift to give. Each of us have a unique superpower. Let's stay with gift. Let's not go into the superpowers right now. But each of us have a unique gift, something to offer the world, something to offer the people around us, something that almost makes us, in our very self, a Eucharist to someone else. So let's go back to that talk about the grammar of life. A map. Well, when you hold that piece of bread and you see it being broken or whatever, as we do communion, think about it not just as a symbol or something that we do in remembrance of Jesus. You can take it very seriously, of course. Say this is the body of Jesus. Jesus said that. But maybe it would be helpful to also think about it as the grammar of our very lives, as a roadmap by which to understand our lives. And here's the interesting thing. You have to have all 4 of those in order to have a Eucharistic life. And some people will say, no, I've never been chosen by God. Or some people might say, no, I've never been blessed by God with anything good ever being given to me. Or maybe some of us, on some level in the back of our heads, we think we can get through life without ever being broken by it. And then maybe there's some of us that have been taken and blessed and then broken, and then we're just left there thinking that we have nothing to give the world, but that's not true. That's not true. You see, Jesus in his own self, in his own personhood, he was chosen, taken by God, and he was blessed, and he went through his own unique breaking so that he could be given to the world. There's this other brilliant passage in the New Testament that says, a servant is not greater than its master. Whatever happens to the master is going to happen to the servant. Each of us would do well to remember the grammar of a Eucharistic life and to stop and realize, okay, I'm in a season right now where I definitely feel like I've been chosen by God. You might be in a season where right now you definitely feel like you're being blessed by God. You might right now be in a season where you're thinking, I am being broken by God. Or you might even have come full circle and come around to saying, I am now ready to give what I have to give to the rest of the world. And that's the sweet spot. Because Jesus walked that road. And there's something profound to this statement of being a follower of Jesus. Jesus walked these 4 steps, to show us that that journey is a good one, even though it's hard. It's still beautiful, even though it has ugly moments. What Jesus did, we can do. So may each of us this week allow ourselves to be taken up by the romance of God. May each of us allow ourselves to be blessed by the people around us or by just nature around us, to be blessed by experiences of God in small moments throughout the day. May each of us be broken, but to realize that we're being broken so that we can be given. And so then that's the last step. May each of us learn how to give our broken, blessed, and chosen selves to one another and to God. And by doing that, we will be living out the grammar or the roadmap of a Eucharistic life. Be blessed.